Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Rashid Banat. I want to thank you guys for joining us for our May 2020 Charlotte Tableau User Group meeting. We'll get started. This month, we actually have a special guest speaker by the name of Israel Curiel. He's actually one of our co-leads on the user group, and he's going to be teaching us today how he integrates Python with Tableau to do a certain level of automation. So first, before we kick that off, a few announcements to make for all of you who are participating in this call who are perhaps new to the Charlotte Tableau user group, or perhaps you're not in Charlotte at all. First, if you're not in Charlotte or North Carolina for that matter, welcome. It's good to have you. For those who are and have joined us before, welcome back. It's always good to have you guys with us. Kind of want to just go through just a little quick brief overview just for those who aren't familiar. We have myself, Jeremy Poole, William Aubrey, and again, Israel Curiel. We are the Charlotte Tableau user group leaders here in Charlotte, North Carolina. For those who don't know, the best way to see our content, we have content in more than one place. We have our Charlotte Tableau user group main page, which has all of our future events and listings and pretty much everything. It's like a one-stop shop of all of the content that we've ever produced or been involved with. And the link to that page is what you're seeing right now. That is usergroups.tableau.com/Charlotte. If there was a link to bookmark, that is the link to bookmark. From that link, you can get to our event page, you can get to our community forum, you can get to our YouTube channel. All of our content can always be traced back through that one link. And again, that link is usergroups.tableau.com/Charlotte. On another note, for those who may not be aware, Tableau has actually opened up the entire user group meeting process to go virtual. And it's not just us who's gone virtual, hence why I said if there are folks who aren't from North Carolina or Charlotte joining this call, I can't encourage you enough to bookmark this link, which is usergroups.tableau.com/virtual Tableau community events. Now that we've all gone virtual in light of the coronavirus, every Tableau user group meeting around the world is now available to everyone. 2 weeks ago, I went to a user group meeting for Sweden. I believe it was in Stockholm, Sweden. I also went to the Washington, D.C. user group meeting. I plan on going to the Atlanta and the Pittsburgh one at the end of next week. So again, this is a really good opportunity to learn from other user groups. Just so you know, there are Zen masters who I believe are leaders of other user groups. So this is a really, really good time to be able to kind of learn from a whole lot of people who are really, really good when it comes to Tableau. So again, if you want to know about any future Tableau virtual meetings, no matter where they are. And I mean that literally. There will be time differences, and some of these aren't even in English, so just be aware of that. But again, if you want to know about any future virtual events, the link that you're seeing right now is that will have all information about that, as well as the Data Fam Community Jam, which again, if you haven't heard of that, that's another great thing that's coming up that Tableau's been doing, I think over the past 4 or 5 weeks. And also on that note, I do want to let you know that Tableau is still offering their e-learning package free for 90 days. For those who have Tableau experience or don't have Tableau experience, either way, this is something that you can get for free that you would normally not be able to get for free. And I can just leave it at that because again, it's I've been building in Tableau for 3 or 4 years, and I went out there and started looking at some of the new learning paths and things that they have available now as far as teaching and training that they didn't have a few years ago. So there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of great content out there, a lot of good stuff to learn. So again, it's free for 90 days still. I believe it starts the day you register. So if you register today, you would be good until I think August 12th or whatever 90 days is from today. And again, like I said, go out there and just look at some of the learning path and just the different content that's available. Because again, it may not be free for much longer. So I would take advantage while you still can. And that link again, as you can see on the screen, tableau.com/learn/training/e-learning. All right, with that note, I would like to take this time to introduce our speaker, Israel Curiel. He's a credit risk analytics consultant here at Wells Fargo, and he is going to show us how he uses, how he does Tableau automation using the Tableau Server Client Python module. So with that note, Israel, I'll pass it over to you and let you share some wonderful content that you've got ready for us.
Okay. Um,
1 second.
This is Israel Curiel, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about my background first, where I started doing something in data and data analytics. So it's been right almost at 3 decades. I started using a product called Access, not Microsoft. It was called Access 2.0, circa 1994. In about a year after that, I started using the programming language. It was called Basic, Access Basic. So I've been doing some type of data analysis, data analytics since the early 1990s. I started really beefing up my programming skills. I started doing some web development. My first web application was in 1996 with a product called Visual Studio ASP Classic. That was the predecessor to the .NET programming framework that Microsoft uses today. I have been a Tableau user now since 2011. I have a strong background in Tableau now, but I always seem to be missing that super creative aspect that I see these Zen masters come up with these incredible designs. But I do feel that Tableau is a wonderful tool for those of us who are creatively challenged. Um, so, and what I'm going to introduce you today is using a product called Python. Python is a relatively new programming language. I've been using Python for about 2.5 years. So let me go ahead and share my desktop. And Rashida, let me know if you guys see my screen.
Yep, we got you.
All right. So my presentation, I wanted to show you guys something called Tableau Server Client. It is a module actually created by the Tableau Corporation for users to programmatically interact with the Tableau server. It has become very useful. The code that I'm going to show you is taking me about 8-9 months to build. So this wasn't an overnight thing. It's kind of evolved. Uh, at Wells Fargo, we found ourselves managing these large number of workbooks with now hundreds of worksheets. And my manager kept asking, hey, what tables or what views and workbooks are connected to this specific database or this specific source or this specific field? Needless to say, that became extremely challenging to identify the data sources for all of these workbooks and worksheets. So I looked into this Tableau Server Client product to help us address those issues because as our underlying data infrastructure changed, there was renaming of fields, there were some decommissioned views and tables, and we had to find a programmatic way to identify those changes. So some of the other things that we found that we needed to do along the way are detailed here in this overview. What I'm showing you now is a product called Collab Research by Google. It is really Google's version of Jupyter Notebooks. As a matter of fact, right now would be a good time. Alyssa, could you show the survey? I'd like to get an idea of our audience's experience with Python and Jupyter Notebooks and Tableau. So if you see on your, it should be on your right-hand side, there's a poll. Can you just fill out how many years of experience you have with Tableau and if you have any experience with Python? Just kind of to give me an idea of where the audience is as far as the skill sets. All right, and I'm going to continue here. So again, some of the issues that we were facing was managing these large number of workbooks, worksheets, and the connections to our data sources. At this point, in my current position, we're using data from SAS, Teradata, SharePoint, and some even information from our file structures because we have so much code that we use to do the ETL. We've now also started to use Python to crawl through our data structure or through our directories and actually read the code, specifically SAS and SQL to identify the sources of where our data is coming from. Another thing, in our current setup, we use Tableau Server with cache data. Now, in Tableau Server, you can create extracts of your data to improve performance, or you can have live data. Live data is really optimal as long as your database is incredibly responsive. In our current situation, during the early parts of the month when we're loading data, our reports are possibly competing with up to 2,000 concurrent users, and there's a queue priority of other queries, maybe up to 20,000 queries that have a higher priority of execution than our reports do. So what was happening is if we try to load these live connection Tableau server reports, it was crawling. And the reality is, if data analysts go to a website and they're trying to pull up a report and they wait 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, users are just going to stop using those reports. So what we wanted to do is we make all of our reports use data extracts. And in the background, we have our primarily SaaS jobs that go and constantly query our data repositories to check when data is available. When the data actually shows up, we do our summarization and ETL process, ship it off into our data source, and then call our Tableau reports to refresh the data. This allows our reports to be very responsive. One of the other things that we were looking at is we have 4 to 5 developers working on Tableau reports. Sometimes we needed to make sure that we didn't leave our user IDs inside of a data connection. So this code also lets us loop through all those connections and identify which user IDs are connecting to which data sources. Let's see. Okay, so now let me start moving into the code. All right, again, this is Google's Colab platform. In this platform, it's just like a Jupyter notebook. If anyone's, let's see, does anyone have, I should have asked how many people have experience with just Jupyter notebooks. Experience, okay, cool. So in the Jupyter notebooks or in this Colab research by Google, you can install what they're called modules. Modules, think of them as small software packages. The true workhorse of all this code is called Tableau Server Client. Up in the overview section, I have a link to the Tableau website or their code that explains how the module works. If you did not have that module installed in the notebook, you can run this command and it will install it for you. Now, the code that I'm going to show you is entirely disconnected from a real Tableau server. All of my work is internal to the bank, so obviously it would be a security issue for me to show you any of it. So what I'm going to present to you is information. It's just made up information that represents as closely as possible to the data that I see in my work. So the first section, you're going to have to import all of the modules that I use in the code below. Again, modules are small pieces of software programs that you would be using inside of the Tableau project. In my code, I had to ignore some warnings, insider network. I think it was the certificates was throwing an error, so I just wanted to turn those off. When you're programming, it's always a good practice to store your credentials separately. In all of our programming examples, we store our code, but our user IDs and passwords are always stored in the environment, so it's not easily available to somebody who's just reading the code. So lines 21 and 22 will pull those values from the OS. This variable Tableau server is going to be the connection to your Tableau server. That is not a real address. It's just an example where you would store the variable. The display HTML container is just a way for us to expand the display to show full screen. In Jupyter Notebooks, you wanted to show the full screen. I'm going to collapse here my table of contents. You can use this little hamburger at the top next to the table of contents to hide that section. All right. Download jQuery dynamic tables. Again, in our situation at work, we're dealing with hundreds of views. So when the data was coming back, it becomes a little bit challenging to try to find pieces of data, maybe specific to my ID or connecting to a specific data set. So I used a product, this jQuery table, data table, to kind of simulate a filter table right inside of the notebook. And I actually can't show you this aspect because it's not a feature available to the Collab research area, but it does work in Jupyter Notebooks. I know you guys are going to have lots of questions. If you have questions specific about Python, I can answer them at the end, but if you have questions specifically about Tableau, I encourage you to enter in the chat session and my teammates will try to address those questions. So in this next section is where I define the functions, the workhorses of what perform the functions I need. I needed to deal with date times, converting them from UTC to local. I had show available projects. When you connect to a Tableau server at the bank, there are probably hundreds of work projects related to each department has their own project, and the projects really are a way to encapsulate security. So Department A has Project A, Department B has Project B, and it becomes really easy to be able to manage security by project. So this function shows you which projects are available to you on the server. Sets to strings just uh, changes a array of values to a string. Print object attributes is a function that I use because I had to iterate through a lot of attributes that I didn't always know the properties on objects. Export data frame. At the end, I'm going to show you that I export the data to Excel. Everyone always wants to export data to Excel, so I want to make sure that I had a function in there that would allow me to export the data. And get workbooks and connections from server. So this is kind of this one function is really the core this whole project is based around. What I needed to do is I needed to call out to the server and collect all the workbook IDs, workbook names, owner IDs, tags, update date, project name, data ID, data name, data source name, and data source name. So this would be specifically like database A dot table name. I also have the server address. Server would be like my Oracle server dot wellsfargo.com. That information is all loaded into what's called a data frame. In the Python world, your data sets is just really the repository. It's tables and memories where you store your information. So the data sets or the data frames that I'm storing contain these highlighted fields. Line 68 is where I actually create the data frame. Server.auth.signin has a parameter called Tableau auth, which I've assigned up above. And at the end, as a matter of fact, let me do one thing. I want to share this workbook with everybody. Let's see. Hey, Rashid, can you share that link? I don't see the sharing screen. Here we go. Oh, wait, here we go. All right, I'm pasting in the chat room a link to this document. This document is a read-only mode to everyone, but I wanted to make sure that everyone has access to this code. Okay, so line 70 actually signs into the server. Line 72 actually collects all of the workbooks on the server for a specific project. And then inside the workbook, once I'm inside the workbook, you'll see on line 75 through 77 or through 78, I am iterating through every connection through every workbook. At work, this ends up being, I don't know, it was like 400 different connections for all of the individual workbooks and worksheets. But once I have that, I have it in a data set, I have it inside of a Jupyter notebook, it allowed me a lot of flexibility in identifying our data sources, identifying which reports are up to date and which reports needed to be refreshed or pointing to, or which ones needed to point to new data sources. Another function that kind of evolved along the way is once we identified that data, we found that we had to refresh some of the workbooks. Let's say in days of during heavy processing, let's say calendar days 1 through 10, we have many different data sources coming in, and they're coming in very sporadic at different time frames. Well, we needed a way to iterate through um, reports that might not be updating every hour or just needed to be updated real time. So I created a refresh workbook. This signs into the server. I put a sleep time in there just because it seemed to be there was a little bit of lag when I was trying to authenticate to the server. So I put 10-second sleep time in there. It seemed to fix the problem. I made a connection to the workbook, and then I called the refresh method on the specific workbook ID that I wanted to refresh. And calling that function gives me a job refresh ID. That job refresh ID lets me later come back and check to see if that refresh extract has completed. The final thing that we found we had to do is we had to update the workbook connections. So we had to provide parameters of the workbook ID, the resource connection ID, the ID, the new password, the new ID that we were going to connect with, and the new password. There was a situation last year where we had to iterate through all these hundreds of worksheets and connections to update the user ID to a new user ID and password. This made it extremely simple. I think I was able to do it in like 2 minutes, and we were all concerned about how fast we can make these connections without causing the account to get locked up. So this made it very, very easy. The last function is check job completion time. Again, this was a way for us to validate what time the extracts completed. And it was really important because a lot of our data sources are calling to these databases that are under heavy processing. So the extract time varied a lot. Sometimes it was 15 minutes, sometimes it was 45 minutes. So this was a good way to allow us to validate what time those reports were being completely refreshed. This next cell is just a way for me to set up the environment variables and log into the server. The Tableau auth is the variable I was telling you about. I use the Tableau Server Client Tableau auth method, and I pass the user ID and password to authenticate to the server. This actually created the server connection, and it prints off. This function will actually print off. Oh, I'm sorry, I needed to tell it to turn off the certificate validation. And then once I was connected to the server, I would tell the server that we're going to use the latest version of the Tableau Server Client software. So that's what this cell does. This next cell, get all workbook connections from server. That's the function that we described up above. By calling this function, and I'm not going to run it right now because this is all, it's not connected to a real server, obviously for security reasons, but this takes about 30 seconds to work in our environment, and it'll pull information for maybe 100 worksheets and 150, 170 connections. And it shows information similar to this. So it shows you all the workbook IDs. It's a GUID, the name of the workbooks, the IDs, the tags. I wanted to take a second. Rashid or Jeremy or William, do you guys use tags in your projects when you use Tableau?
Not often. Every now and again, I do.
I have used it in the past just as another organization method for content, just since search will leverage it.
Right, right. How about you, William? Any use of tags in your experience?
Actually, you're teaching me something. I didn't realize we could do tags in Tableau Server. So
yeah,
everybody learns today. It's great.
Well, see, and that's exactly why I wanted to bring it up. in large installations of Tableau, when you're dealing with hundreds of worksheets, it becomes beneficial. How can you tag and organize it? In our work environment, we have different teams, team A, B, and C. Well, we're going to say very generic. Team A has these 25 reports they use. Team B has these 20 reports they look at. So we started using tags inside our Tableau workbooks to very easily distinguish. We could show a view of just tags for Team A, tags for Team B, and tags for Team C. It's just a better, a very useful tool for organizing information, displaying just the data that you're most interested in. All right, so as part of that process, you also get the updated date time, the project name, the data source ID. So there's an ID for every connection that you have. The data source name. So in a very real situation, we're always having our data sources change name. So instead of Social Security _ID, it's now going to be Social Security nothing, just SSN. When you have to dig through all of your code and identify how many of your views and your reports, your dashboards are connecting to that data source. Before, it was very, very difficult. Now, with this tool, we can very easily look at this, and if the filter were working in this environment, I could just sort for my table name, and it would just show the records, the observations where each data connection was connecting to a specific table and database. All right. Teradata, the connection type shows Teradata, SQL, Oracle, whatever your data source is. Server name, let's see this, username, password, and the web server. The web server is your Tableau server. Okay. Obviously, this is just generic data. It's not real. I had to manually type that in. This next section, apply style navigation for functionality, is the part I won't be able to show you. But if anyone is familiar with JavaScript, it just made this data, when you're dealing with hundreds of lines of code or hundreds of lines of results, it made it a table that you could filter by. So you can type in any value and it would dynamically filter that data frame for you. So one of the great things about using Python and Jupyter Notebooks is a notebook is a great utility where you can combine documentation and code and some of your data analytics or analysis in the same location. What I'm showing you here is just a chart. I use this at work. We needed a chart of the specific IDs that were being used in our connections and tags. The tags is a little further down below. But this extracts the users from all of my workbooks. I'm grouping by the username. I'm collecting only the username field, and I'm counting it and adding it to a new data frame called row count. Once I collected that information, I created a bar chart. And this bar chart added labels. So you'll see here 2, 2, and 3. In my work examples, there's maybe half a dozen of these charts, but this makes it a really good way to very quickly visualize your data without going out to an external tool like Tableau. Obviously, Tableau is my favorite visualization tool, but if you don't want to leave your environment, you want to stay inside one environment, it's really easy to do that inside of Python. So this chart just showed the number of connections per specific ID. The next cell does something very similar, and this was a way to also tag or show the counts, created a chart of the tags used in our reports. In this situation, I was just using Oracle tags, favorite tags, or MySQL server tags. But honestly, the tag field is free-form text. You can apply any text that you want for a tag. All right. Let's see. So I think right now would be a good time to pause for any questions from the audience. Can the audience type questions in the windows here?
Yeah, Israel, I can we've had a few already.
Okay.
Aaron Chan has just asked, and I believe he kind of may have answered his own question, but just to confirm, for the list of workbooks returned by the Git workbooks and connections from server return, is it subject to the caller's permission of what Tableau folders the credential has permission to? Meaning that basically, can you run this script if you don't have permission to certain Tableau workbooks? Can you run that return of that call for all workbooks if you yourself as a user don't have permission to look at that workbook?
Right. So the Tableau Server Client is already limited to the projects. Specifically, projects is where you get security rights to. So you're only able to see projects where you have access rights to. So you're not going to get a returns of things that you're not privy to.
Okay. And then really quick, Michael Lane had asked earlier, did you at any point when you were walking through this presentation show how you connected your Python code to Tableau? He's working on something similar with Tableau and R, and he just wanted to see where within your Python code you had made the connection to Tableau. Yeah.
Sure. So let's see. Let's go back to that right here. So it's as simple as using the Tableau Server Client, Tableau Auth, passing the user ID and password. That's it. This establishes the authenticated handshake with your server. And then Tableau Server, let's see, Tableau Auth. Yeah, at this point, you're already connected to it. Here is the connection to the server. Tableau Server, yep. And so this was it. This is all it took to make the connection. My environment variables, obviously you saw that this server was variable defined at the very top.
Gotcha.
So it's right here.
Okay.
That part was very easy. Trying to figure out how to iterate through all of the workbook connections, this code took me a very long time. There were some examples out there, but I was stifled in trying to figure out initially. Okay. Yeah, I hope that answered your question. Is there any more questions, Rashid?
Nope, I believe those were the only two for now.
All right, let's go back here. Okay. So now we're going to go into a couple more sections here. You've already seen how I went and pulled all of the information from the server and a little bit of visualization of how we see, connections by user ID or tags. Once I had discovered that, and I had the need to refresh the dashboards, and this code will pull a list of workbooks where the updated date time is less than the current day. This is where I define the start of the day. So it's really kind of like 1201, right? So anything that was defined that was not refreshed since this morning would show up in this data set or data. It's called the data frame, right? So this data frame gives me a list here. Let's see. And this, as a matter of fact, wait a minute, I'm missing a line of code. This would actually just gives me the list. There's really two ways also to kick off a refresh process. Once I had the data set, I could call my refresh extract function that was up above, or we could use another tool. We use something called tabcommand.sh. In talking to other Tableau developers, I think very few people are familiar with it. It is, again, something built by Tableau, the corporation. It is a Java client that goes and does the API calls from whatever environment you're working on to Tableau Server, and it tells it to refresh. So in this example, I took my data frame of workbooks and I was iterating through each one of them, and I was printing off the tab command refresh extract for the workbook name, workbook 1. Well, the workbook name's here. You also have to pass in the project name. The project name is whatever on Tableau Server, your project team has designated for your project name. And then I said, don't certify with server certificates, and I want the refresh to happen synchronously. So we use this a lot because there might be a handful of workbooks that we have to refresh at the same time. So it's either we can do it inside of the Jupyter Notebook, or our commands run on a Linux box, and we could copy and paste this text right onto our Linux box to refresh a whole bunch of workbooks at the same time. Okay. Get the refresh completed times. So in a very similar fashion, I can iterate through the data frame, through each row, and I can call the check completed date time function. So it would check the individual IDs, and it'll tell me what time that refresh extract completed. So that's how we were able to check when a workbook is up to date. Near the end, we're always having to share the results of this work or this analysis with other people. So we always need to make sure that we export those results to Excel, and that you saw up above the function to export to Excel. It's just a couple lines, but I find myself exporting data all the time. And one other thing is last year we did have a need to update a large number of connections with a new production ID and password. And using the function update workbook connection, we were able to iterate through all of the workbooks that had connections using the old ID and password. And it made it very simple to make that change. God, maybe, I mean, it wasn't, but maybe a minute or two to update it on 100 workbooks. So it made it very easy to do that. So I understand that this is a very advanced concept. I realize that a lot of people who attend some of our meetings are relatively new to Tableau. So this is really when you get to the point where you have a large installation of Tableau workbooks, worksheets in those workbooks, and it starts to get a little cumbersome to track your sources and your field usage, and even monitoring your report performance. This workbook is our tool that we use to help us optimize our environment to make sure our analysts get their data in a very, very short time frame. We want to make sure that our workbooks respond in 2 to 5 seconds optimally. That's really the time frame you want to shoot for, because if the users of your dashboards are waiting 10 plus seconds, they're eventually just going to stop using your dashboards. So this environment, this workbook helps us optimize the performance of all of our reporting workbooks and dashboards.
Hey, Israel, we have a few more questions.
Sure.
Okay. And actually, if Nishant D, Alyssa, perhaps maybe you can just unmute his line, because he has a few questions, and I just want to make sure I'm asking them the correct way. But in advance of that, basically, his first question was, where can we see the Tableau Server Client tool in Tableau Server? And I think I know the answer to that, but just wanted to kind of let you explain kind of what your code is doing versus an actual like add-on or extension. And I think we may have lost Israel.
Available in the Tableau.
Okay. Israel, we lost you for a second. Can you start from the beginning?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I thought.
No.
Yeah. All right. So to address, I was looking at this question here on is the Tableau auth and refresh already available? Yeah, they're included in part of the Tableau Server Client module. And what I was showing you up above here, let me go back here. Define functions. This area is really my attempt to encapsulate it in a way that I could very easily use these. The refresh workbook, the get connection information. So you see here, the refresh workbook is just calling the server.workbook.refresh command that was provided by the Tableau Server Client. So yes, it's already built in there. I defined additional functions to kind of just really facilitate my work and put the data in a format that I could use. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, unfortunately, Nishant's not currently connected to audio. But in the meantime, I'll let him, oh, yes,
Yep.
he did. Okay, there we go.
All right, great.
We have one more question from Tom Hinkle. Do you know how this compares to do you know how it compares to Tableau Catalog?
Tableau Catalog?
Yeah. His question's in the Q&A if you want to see it. It's separate from the chat.
Oh, I'm not familiar with Tab Catalog. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I'm not sure I can answer that then. Okay. I just found that pretty much all the information that I needed to collect, I was able to collect using this code. I guess I'm not sure, Tom, if that answers your question. You'll have to explain to me exactly what Tableau Catalog is later. Was there any other questions? Fresh, let's see. Rashid, you still there?
I think I may be frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, my screen froze up though. Sorry about that.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. So I know this is a lot to take in. I'm going to leave this workbook shared. There's no sensitive information in here, no user IDs and passwords. So I'll leave this project shared in the presentation. So you can access this code at any point. And I encourage you to try to use it. You'll see that as your installation of Tableau workbooks and worksheets starts to grow, this workbook or this notepad is a great tool to help you manage your environment as it grows. And that's pretty much it for my presentation of using Tableau with the Tableau Server Client to interface with your Tableau server.
All right, thanks, Israel. I may need to ask either William or Jeremy because I can't. I'd like to, open it up for maybe any more questions. Either through the chat, the Q&A, or maybe on the phone. But I'm still frozen, so I can't see anything right now. So if Jeremy or William, if you guys are there, kind of let me know if there's, if there's any questions or if you guys want to, wrap up the call early.
Yeah. So I'm here looking through the questions now. One confirmation from Michael Lane. So you're hosting on Tableau.com. This is your own Tableau server, right?
No,
not your own, but your company's.
Oh no! Wait. What you're looking at on screen is actually from Google. This is Google's implementation of Jupyter Notebooks. So it's free. Anyone can create an account here at collab.research.google.com. So this is free. It's completely unrelated to my company, to Wells Fargo. So you can access this at any time. I've already shared this publicly. Anyone with the address can pull it up. And this is just, it's not real. But in our installation, we would just point to,
your own Tableau server.
Our URL, yeah, our Tableau server to establish the connection.
Great. Michael Lane, appreciate all your questions tonight. Thank you very much. Another one here. I am curious, can you get the authorizations for current users?
Ooh, that's actually something I hadn't looked at. Authorizations for, no, I'm not sure. Okay. It is not something that I've investigated.
An open question. Actually, I've had that question myself, Michael. with clients who have many different users, what is their license? So having some kind of mechanism that you could cursor through all the users, get their licenses, license types, that would be very valuable. It sounds like that's an open question that we have.
And Michael, what happens in our platform is our server administrator has actually created some reports that show us the usage of our workbooks and our worksheets. So I am able to see who's using our individual worksheets and workbooks, but it's not information that was available to me. It had to be provided by our server administrator. They built the Tableau dashboards to show us those metrics.
Excellent. Okay. John McClelland asks, and Tableau Online, no, he's actually letting us know, you can get license type by user via admin insights. So admin insights is something that you can use to get a list of users and their license types. So thanks, John. Okay. What are the questions we have in here? Data management add-on has a metadata API. Chuck Stevens is letting us know that. Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, Michael, it is a lot. That's why I spent months looking over other people's code these are little pieces that I collected from here and there. And but I think that this one notebook kind of encapsulated most of what you want to do on the server into one easy to understand package. Take a little bit of time, try to work through one piece at a time, and you'll figure it out. There's a lot of documentation on the Tableau website to better understand the what functionality they provide right from their module.
Okay, great. Do we have any other? Let's see, we're just coming up on 6:30. Do we have any other questions? Any other? Maybe we could try to stump Jeremy or Rashid with some Tableau questions. Notice how I volunteered you, Rashid and Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think that we're wrapping up with questions.
We had
You got
one
something?
question from the shot. Yeah, I think he's at Israel. He's asking if you have mostly used Pandas library as most of the work is done on data frames. Is majority of, I guess, what you're doing in your code using the Pandas library, or are you using multiple libraries like SciPy and NumPy and all the rest of them?
No. Oh, let me tell you the just the pandas because adding anything more was already going to make it even far more complicated. This was strictly I could do almost everything for server administration just in pandas. So yeah, almost all of the work is around the pandas and the data frames.
All right. Jeremy or Rashid, anything you want to add for today?
No, just thanks again to Israel for doing this. I'm sure he's going to have more fun for us with Python going forward. He's our Python guy now, so hopefully he'll volunteer to do another one of these soon. But thanks for everyone attending. We got one more question. Sabanti Sen, is TabPy required to connect to Tableau, or Tableau Server Client should suffice? Now, I believe the answer to that is TabPy is required to connect to Tableau Desktop. But Israel, I mean, are you following that question?
TabPy. I think TabPy is something someone else built. I didn't use it, so I'm not too familiar with it. I don't recall if TabPy is actually built. I don't think it's built by Tableau. I think it's what someone else built.
Yeah, and again, I'm a beginner when it comes to some of this Tableau Python integration, but I think I do understand the question, because I do know that if you do want to connect like your Python code to a dashboard, like a real interactive Tableau dashboard, that is when you would have to use the TabPy. Yeah, I forget, that's like a module, but you would have to use TabPy to establish that connection so that Tableau can send and retrieve data from Python kind of in real time. But to your point,
Okay.
what you're doing with these workbooks are already on server, Tableau server. And yeah, you're just kind of setting up refreshes and things of that nature. So yeah, I don't think you need TabPy in that scenario.
No, not in this scenario.
Yeah, TabPy allows your workbook to communicate with the Python server.
Yeah.
For previous, privately, I have Tableau does all this. So Brent, I'm not sure if there's a question how I can answer. Let's see. Yeah, just take a look through the code in this notebook, and hopefully it provides you the information that you need. You know what? I think there might be other attributes that I didn't collect, but the ones that are listed here are pretty much all I needed to address my needs in my workload.
Very cool, Israel. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Participants, be on the lookout for the recording. You'll get that. Feel free to share. Israel has shared his code, so obviously feel free to take that and build on it. And if you do something cool with it, if you extend it in a cool way, share it back with Israel. I'm sure he'd love it.
I would absolutely.
That way he won't have
Please.
to write it, right? Cool.
Okay, I think we can call it a day. If anyone has any, well, one last 30 seconds for questions. No questions. We'll give you guys back a few minutes of your time. Let you enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks for joining.
Right.
Thanks again,
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.